Hello and welcome. I am so delighted that you are joining me for the next 45 minutes to talk about the state of finance, the future of finance. I want to share the CIMA professional qualification and a very exciting development with you. My name is Ash Noah. I'm with the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, and I'm the managing director for the CGMA, the Chartered Global Management Accounting designation that CIMA gives. So I wanted to start talking about what we do as an association. We have a significant number of members around the world, and we are supporting them through development, through preparing them for the future. And also, when you think of the times that we're in, we were all in the midst of a finance transformation before COVID, and COVID has actually accelerated some of these needs for becoming more agile, the need for becoming, for creating capability to work remotely, to execute remotely, to be able to close your books remotely, et cetera, et cetera. So if COVID in the real world has actually enabled us and caused us to rethink how we do things that we do, that we used to do before. So in a way, you can see COVID as a challenge, but I think COVID has actually also been a great opportunity for those organizations which are now reacting in a way which has really strengthened the organization. COVID is a really sad humanitarian issue, and I'm not making light of that at all. It has been a big challenge for countries, for organizations. But in the midst of all of this, most of you have taken steps to make sure that you have protected your staff, you've protected livelihoods, you've protected your company. And in your role as finance leaders, often you have to be rising above these challenges. So we're here to support you as an association. With the merger of CIMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and the merger of the AICPA, the association that is of the CPAs of America, the American Institute of CPAs, has been really a strong combination, because we can now cover everything from financial accounting, tax, treasury, the whole compliance and audit angle, and the public accounting angle. And we are able to support also the corporate finance, the management accounting angle, and cover the end-to-end role of the CFO and support the CFO in ways that perhaps other organizations are not able to. We are providing strategic support in our learning and offerings, and we are also going into digital and new ways of working that enables you and your team. So we really need to think about the challenges, finance transformation at three levels. One is at the association level, where I said, as an association, we support a large number of members through finance transformation, through a personal journey of acquiring new competencies, and we provide those learning solutions. You, as leaders of your organizations, you have teams, and you need to be thinking about your teams. You need to be thinking about their professional development pathways, and also how you can digitize your business model, how you can digitize your office of the CFO. And in that regard, we also provide support to enable you to do that. And finally, we provide research and thought leadership in these areas to enable you as members and future members to really be effective in the leadership of your organizations. So I firstly want to start off with talking about what does the future hold, and the journey of transformation that we were on before COVID hit. We were all looking at how the technological innovation is really fundamentally enabling us to reimagine how we finance, to reimagine how transactions are processed, to imagine automation, the production of the reports, the analysis, etc. And technology that is available now to enable us to transform finance is unprecedented. We have the help of data science, data engineering, that is also now leading to machine learning, which is helping automation of not just transactions, but as I will show you in my slides, it's also impacting other areas of finance. There is a new shape of finance, there's a new organizational design, and there is a rise of the gig economy. In the US alone, it is estimated that by 2023, more than 50% of the workforce in America will be freelance and not employed. And then we are looking at the role of finance and the relevance of finance in the analytics revolution, and to consider, are we winning that revolution? Are we staying on top? Are we losing relevance as finance in the analytics revolution? I would like to talk about that as we go through this presentation. I'll start off with this slide, which really is about how knowledge is doubling every half a day. And that's what was predicted in 1984 by IBM. And when we looked at how knowledge, if this is the content of all human knowledge, it was estimated that it would take 100 years for that knowledge to double. But now, as you can see, that has accelerated significantly. The other thing for us as leaders to consider is the half-life of knowledge. And the half-life of knowledge means what you have learned today, how long does it take for that 50% of that knowledge to become redundant? So in the 60s, there was a study done on engineering, and they saw that the half-life of an engineering degree, which took about 5 years to acquire, was around 15 to 20 years. That 50% of the knowledge would be redundant between 15 and 20 years going forward. Today, that estimate is that the half-life of engineering knowledge is about 2.5 to 5 years, which means that we need to engage in a significant amount of learning to stay on top of developments. So when you look at the finance end-to-end role of finance, you see that we know where information resides, we know how to assemble that information, how to extract that information. Some of it is financial, some of it is non-financial, and then we analyze that information, we provide reports and insights, and then we go on to influence and impact our organization. So at a very high level, finance has two roles. One of them is governance, and the other is business guidance. These are the two fundamental roles of the CFO's office. And when we looked at a data point from a research that of S&P 500 companies, they found that companies had predominantly met the need of the business for governance. So the gap between what the CFO's office was providing the business and what the business needed was only 10%. But when it came to business guidance, the gap was a staggering 65%, which means that there is an opportunity for finance to improve what they provide the business by 65%. So that is a great opportunity for us. Technology is going to accelerate that. So when you look at technology and automation, it accelerates you to the right. It accelerates you towards providing better business guidance. But most companies that are engaging in investing significant amounts in technology, significant amounts in automation, will find that it doesn't truly transform everything. What is missing there is the element of competencies. And as automation increases, the need for human skills, and I'll talk about that in some detail, also increases. So in order for finance to move from the assembler analyzer to the actual actuator and architect of value, it not only requires automation, but it also requires a focus on the teams and the skill sets that those teams have. And it's changing the mindset of finance from being a cost mindset, a cost controller, really driving efficiency, to becoming, to having a mindset that is a value mindset, that we are value creating. that we actually drive the top line and not just the costs, that we actually drive profitability, that we become architects of value. So a good story to tell is about the transformation of how finance is looked at by many organizations. We consider ourselves financial navigators. You see the wooden seat there. This is a cockpit of a 707 in 1950s. And you can see the massive instrument cluster that the navigator has in front of that wooden seat. And then you see the pilot and the co-pilot in the front. And you see a smaller dashboard that the pilot and the co-pilot use to fly the plane, make sure it gets safely from origin to destination. The navigator had a critical role to play. The navigator would be monitoring all these systems, providing key information, key flight data to the pilot and the co-pilot to enable the plane to get safely from their origin to their proposed objective, the destination. Many companies describe their finance teams as navigators. They provide essential information without which the business would be flying blind. The navigator makes sure that we are tracking according to our budgeted waypoints. They make sure we've got adequate fuel and cash. They make sure that key systems are functioning properly, and anything that is out of bounds is communicated to the business very promptly. So what happened in the cockpit with cockpit automation and with technology is a great picture of what is happening in finance now. This is a 787 Dreamliner, and you can see the cockpit looks very different. There is no more a requirement for the navigator in the cockpit. And the navigator, to remain in the cockpit, had to learn to fly the plane. And they were in the best position to learn to fly the plane because they knew the aircraft, they knew the aircraft systems, they knew what needed to be done, but they had to acquire skills of execution, actually sitting on the right-hand seat and being the co-pilot. And many finance organizations are now saying, we need financial co-pilots. Co-pilots that can help the captains of the business to actually run the business, to execute, and to create value. And that is the type of transformation we are now talking about. So it's that transformation where the finance is collaborating with the business to create value and is becoming, is now transforming from the back office to the front office of the cost mindset to the value mindset. And so let's just quickly touch on technology and automation and how that's enabling the transformation. So when you look at the overall, the operating model for finance, what you see is accounting operations is predominantly centralized. It's either outsourced or it's centralized in a onshore, or it's actually their own operations which is being centralized. And all the processes like purchase to pay, order to cash, hire to retire, and record to report, all these are processes that are being centralized, and technology is being applied to the accounting operations. You have also COEs, centers of excellence, subject matter experts, which are forming centralized expertise around tax, treasury, mergers and acquisitions, corporate development, etc. FP&A, the financial planning and analytics, is really becoming self-service using technology. And then finance is engaged in decision support, really driving performance, driving business performance management. And then at the top, you have the management and development function, the management function of the finance, which is now looking at career development for their future bench. They're looking at the capabilities, they're looking at competency frameworks, they're looking at addressing competencies, developing competencies, etc. So that is the overall operating model when you look at a modern finance organization. Now, once you start applying technology to this operating model, you can see how accounting operations has benefited greatly from the cloud, from in-memory computing, and from process robotics. That has really accelerated automation in accounting operations. And then when you apply machine learning, cognitive computing, and advanced analytics with the power of visualization, is transforming the way decision support is done, transforming the way that self-service is now available or at a flip of a finger, drill down capability, and automation in areas such as forecasting, etc., is also taking place now. So once you start applying these technologies, you find a new shape emerging. The traditional triangle is now being changed into a diamond with less requirements of workforce in accounting operations because of automation, but a greater requirement in the middle because of the need for those human skills in analysis, decision-making, and supporting the business in the business guidance. And a good parallel is to look at automation in the auto industry. This is a Lexus plant. You can see this is an assembly line, many people, cars moving from start to finish, various parts being added on until you have the finished product. It's not much different if you think about financial processes, if you think about order to cash, if you think about record to report, a transaction starts, people come, they do things to the transaction, it takes on life, and it ends up as a check, or it ends up as a purchase order, it might end up as a customer invoice, it might end up in the P&L, or the balance sheet, or the cash flow, etc. So these are assembly lines. And what's happening with the assembly lines, and what happened to this very specific assembly line, is how automation and robotics affected that. You can see there are still a couple of people who are required to oversee the assembly line. They're not actually performing the activity, but they're overseeing the activity. And what then happens is the skill sets that are required by these remaining people in that assembly line is that they need a completely different skill set. And so that is the type of transformation, and that's the type of workforce transformation that we should be addressing. As automation takes over, we need to be thinking about the human skills. So when you look at the new organization, you have these smart finance factories, you have these centralized excellence centers, which are using digital capability. And then you have that middle of the strategic business partnering and then the management of that function. So the function is taking the shape of this diamond. And what we are now seeing is this, the strategic business partnering is actually migrating to other functions, or is migrating to GBS's, CFO services type centralized organizations, which you might be a part of, where you are going up the value chain and providing not just transactional services, not just analytical services, but perhaps FP&A services, forecasting, centralized capability around budgeting, and business performance management. So we are seeing that as we move forward, that the global business centers are upskilling, using their people to provide value-added activities, and also transforming the global business centers from being of that cost mindset to making them shift towards the value mindset. The other thing we're also seeing is how some of those strategic business partnering functions are migrating into the function itself. So for example, when you look at revenue and revenue forecasting, finance would have their models. Finance knew the ratios to be applied for lost business, for new business, for business growth based on GDP, for business that would be lost based on trends, etc., and would come up with a revenue forecast. But what you're seeing today is a functional approach to revenue forecasts and revenue management. So an example would be Salesforce. The CRM tool has rich data about customers at a customer level, propensity to trade, the churn rate, the new business acquisition rate, and the lost business. So Salesforce CRM and analytics is in a much stronger position to provide revenue forecasts than any model that finance had developed. So you can see how some of that capability is now shifting out into the function itself. And the opportunity for us is, as finance professionals, to acquire those skills so that we can continue to guide that migration of the business partnering into the function. But that is happening as we speak, and we need to address how we should be upskilling our teams to be able to go and be embedded within sales, for example. So that's technology is transforming finance, but let's now look at the human skills aspect of what does it take for a navigator to learn to then become the co-pilot. It is really the combination of having those technical skills, having our training as accounting professionals, but layering on top of that attributes around technology and around human skills. The ability to lead change, the ability to manage your function, the ability to join the dots across the organization, demonstrate interpersonal skills so that you can influence the organization and really drive the culture and fit with the culture of the organization. So when you start thinking about capabilities within your team, it's not just about knowing your technical accounting or really having a grasp of technology, but it is also having those, I'd like to call them hard skills because they're really hard to acquire. Skills like personal judgment, skills like being able to convince, being able to present a logical argument, being able to present a business case with empathy. And these are the type of skills that we are finding CFOs are acquiring more and more. And so when you look at the old world, we needed, and if you look at the type of tasks and the amount of time, this is not the organization structure, but this is more representing the amount of time and skills that were required in the old world, were really around transactional expertise, managing efficient operations, being able to manage tasks, being able to do the close efficiently and accurately. And then when we looked at the more advanced skills, there wasn't a need for those type of skills. Yes, there was a need for deep analytical and strategic thinking, always. There was always a need to influence and negotiate. But as you look at the transformation from navigator to co-pilot, that skill set is inversed. So you need greater skills and more skills around strategic thinking, around being able to collaborate, around being able to create value and deliver value, having really advanced capability in understanding business drivers and the overall business and strategy. So that really helped us to formulate our competency framework, the CGMA competency framework, which drives a combination of these skills. This is a pretty picture of a 64-page document, and the 64-page competency framework enables you, it's a free resource, you can Google it and get those 64 pages. It really describes in detail at 3 different levels the type of skills required in business, people, leadership, and the technical skills. The exciting bit there is our latest research where we went to 5,500 professionals and we spoke to about 200 different organizations of all sizes, in all segments, for-profit, not-for-profit, government, private, public, etc. And what that told us is that we also need digital skills. And we have expanded upon the type of digital skills required. Again, I don't want to go into a lot of detail now. It's available. If you go to cgma.org and just do a Google search on CGMA Competency Framework, you'll find this very rich resource there, which enables you to start looking at what type of skills are required and where the skill gaps are. Most organizations really focus on job requirements in terms of qualifications. They focus on the job role, what is the function of that specific job. But what people don't often do is then elaborate and capture and articulate exactly what skills are required and what competencies are required to have an effective delivery of that job role. And this resource will really help you with that. The other resource I want to bring to your attention is the actual CIMA professional qualification. So the professional qualification really fits in with this new shape of the finance function. And it predominantly enables a candidate to have a good understanding of finance, a good understanding of accounting, be able to use digital assets and technology, and engage in strategic business partnering. So we do that through a syllabus, which actually my team is responsible for. So my team actually does the research, all the research I've presented. We then from that develop the competency framework, which I just showed you in the previous slide. And from this competency framework, my team also then develops the syllabus. So the syllabus is about making sure that the pipeline of professionals who come through the qualification will actually meet the needs of the business. And as I said before, the competency framework that drives the syllabus is based on what you have told us. We constantly go to people such as yourselves and ask them, what is it that you want your people to be able to do? And that is how we build our syllabus. And that's how we build the 3 pillars. We have a finance pillar, a performance pillar, and an enterprise pillar. The pillar in the blue is the enterprise pillar. And that's where we teach candidates what is the role of finance, and how do you manage finance in a world of technology, in a world that has been digitized. We then, as we go further up to the management level and to the strategic level, we shift gears from not just helping the candidate to understand the role of finance within the enterprise. At the top, you actually understand how your enterprise survives in the wider world, in the wider environment, the competitive landscape. It actually goes into detail about enterprise strategy formulation, etc. So what you get there in that enterprise pillar is actually a mini MBA. The pillar in the green is the financial pillar, and that is what most accountants will be familiar with. It's all around accounting, financial reporting, and that's where we really capture the capability and develop the capability to do financial statement analysis, understand markets, understand debt and equity, and that. And the middle pillar is really unique to CIMA. It is about business performance. It's about understanding your business, understanding business drivers, cost drivers, being able to transform costs and being able to drive revenue and margin. And then at the strategic level, it's about being able to manage your risk profile, understand risk appetite, understand how your organization and your enterprise is subject to strategic risk, financial risk, etc., and how to deal with it and how to manage risk. And it really drives in the candidates the capability to manage risks so that we don't become risk shy, but we become managers of risk, managing the risk really effectively. So I've covered most of the topics in those 3 pillars, but there is some more detail here in terms of the finance pillar. You can see advanced financial statements, understanding long-term financing, debt, equity, and at the financial strategy, how to enable your enterprise to execute strategy. Another way of putting this is the first pillar, the enterprise pillar, is about strategy formulation. The middle pillar is about execution. How do you translate strategy into execution and measure the execution in the third pillar, which is around the finance pillar. And so it is a holistic view of the business. It provides somebody who's gone through the syllabus an end-to-end understanding of every part of the business. And you can send these qualified management accountants into any function and into any part of the business, and they will bring a skill set that will be unique to that function. So that is the strength of the syllabus. The exciting thing now is the finance leadership program. And we have created this program which reflects the syllabus at 3 levels, and you have these 9 competency boxes. What we've done is we've broken down the content into topics. Topics roll up into skill sets, and then skill sets roll up into competencies. It's a competency-based learning program. What it does is it presents information and it tests you very quickly on that information in terms of how you've understood it, how you have taken that on, but then it also very quickly tests how you apply it. The whole ethos of learning here is making learning engaging, making learning in bite-sized chunks of the topics, and making learning not about memorization, but about application. So what you do on this platform is you don't memorize a lot of content and then go to an exam center and take an exam. The opportunity here is to test online as you are learning without having to go to a testing center. So instead of going to the testing center and taking 12 exams, 3 exams in each level, and then the case study exams, we only now require you to take 3 high stakes exams. And now we are also providing you the capability of taking those exams in your office or at home through remote proctoring. So there is no need anymore to go to a testing center. In the finance leadership program, we've reduced the number of high-stake exams from 12 exams to 3 case study exams. And also those 3 case study exams can be taken in the convenience of your home or in your office. So it is really a powerful tool that you could provide your employees to continue their lifelong learning journey, to power that transformation we talked about, to get the expertise, not just in the digital world, how finance exists in the digital world, but to manage people, to lead projects, to drive change, to transform your costs, to understand cyber, to manage the strategic risk, to engage in enterprise risk management, and really drive business performance through effective decision-making, capital allocation decisions, etc. It's a robust program which covers a mini MBA, and I said before, it's a mini chartered accounting program, it's a mini performance management program, all rolled into one, that makes a well-rounded finance professional competent and confident to go and engage with the business and become that co-pilot that businesses need so much. Just a couple of screenshots of the finance leadership program. A great dashboard. It gives you your rate, the rate at which you're covering the topics, the rate at which you're completing your competencies. It also gives you a really nice dashboard of, this is at the strategic level. If you remember, I talked about there are 11 competencies in the strategic level. You take each competency at a point in time, and then those little circles are actually skill sets. And then when you click into the skill set, you'll see the topics. So if I go back, you'll see that there are, at the strategic level, you see there are 12 competencies and 38 skill sets and 116 topics. And if you go back to this slide, that's what you'll see. You'll see that there are these 11 competency cards. Each competency cards will have those 38 skill sets. And when you drill down into those skill sets, you'll find that there are 116 different topics that make that up. All the learning is presented by way of case studies, mini case studies. You're given the context, you then get put into a position, and then you're presented scenarios. And so all the learning becomes very engaging. You're not just having to learn facts and memorize facts. What we are causing you to do is to learn by doing. So this is learning by doing, which is the most effective way of learning. And you come across topics by topic. Those topics are then grouped into skill sets. Those skill sets then become your case studies. Those 3 case study exams, the operational case study exam, the management case study exam, and the strategic case study exam, as I said before, it's not about memorization, going to an exam and passing an exam. It's about being able to integrate everything you've learned, about strategy, risk, and execution, for example, at the strategic level. And then formulating strategy, really understanding the situation analysis of this company. The case study is given to you 6 weeks before the exam. You go and research the industry, you research about this particular fictional company, which will be in either the telecom industry or in a situation where they are moving from from fossil fuels to more efficient fuels, for example. Many different types of scenarios that we create in order to help test the capability and the competency development in a real life scenario. So very unique exams, very fun exams actually, that provide real skills, real competencies when you go through this program. And so what we have seen with the companies that are using this is that it is really very effective in moving the typical finance cost mindset into a value mindset by focusing on strategy, by focusing on execution and risk. It really enables the company to develop the bench strength. The whole system is online. It provides you very rich reporting on which specific skill set employees are working on, and managers and employees can work together to then deploy those skills. It's a plug and play program. There is nothing that is required from your end other than implementing it, other than finding people who should be put on it. It's a standard competency framework that I showed you before. The exam is universal across the world, so you can be confident that everyone who's going through this program is being exposed and is subject to the same kind of examination, the same type of competency development, so that can really be standardized. You can drive finance transformation because the program actually exposes the candidates to technology and how technology can fundamentally change business models, how technology can automate financial processes, and you really get a skill set in your team that is more agile in working cross-functionally, and you end up with a very strong bench strength and talent pool from which you can deploy them to various parts of the business. So that's really what I wanted to share with you, the overall challenges, where the future of finance is moving, how you should be thinking about the future, how you should be thinking about your teams, and then I presented you with some tools and with some options that we can support you in transforming your teams, in driving transformation, and in really leveraging the most valuable asset that you have, your people. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to engage with you with any questions that you may have. Please do email us and we will get back to you. Thank you very much.